Hey guys, and welcome back to another session, right? So this is really cool. Now, there's kind of an edge case we caught here where our input we didn't actually have a name here, and there are ways that we can say like, "Hey user, no, we really need a name." This is pretty cool because we can do something called like a while loop, and we can say while name is equal to nothing, nothing, prompt for name. So if we run our program, whoops. Yes, I did. Sometimes Python will help you out and say, "Are you sure you mean that and not this?" They were right. So let's run that again. Let's clear up our prompt. So when we rerun our program, it's going to say, "What's your name?" If I hit enter, it's just going to keep asking, "What is your name? What is your name?" And the reason for this, and if I give it some prompt, we're going to continue. And the reason for this is because we declared our name variable out here. We say name is essentially a blank string. There's just blank string, nothing. And it's saying while name is a blank string, just keep prompting the user for their name. And because we're setting name, we're setting the value from input to name, this will just keep prompting over and over again until there is some value. So that's really, really cool. And if we wanted to, we can actually do this a little bit like deeper. And let's say if we wanted to make sure names are like more than 2 characters or 3 characters, we can put like a new variable called temp name, and then we can say if temp name, and what we can do is we can wrap this in a function called length. And what length will do is it will check the size of this string. So if length of name is not greater than or equal to at least 2, we can prompt back. So we'll do a print statement and say username name must be at least 2 characters. And then if it is greater, right, what we'll do is we'll set name to be equal to the temp name. When we run this now, if I put it in like G, that's not working. That's going to happen sometimes because this says temp name has to be, length of temp name has to be greater than or equal to 2. Ooh, that's not working. Length turns the number of items in a container. If no, got it. I want to be less than. So I wanted to make sure if the name is less than or equal to 2, print that out. Yes. Clear that out. Let's do it again. So it's going to say name must be at least 2 characters, which is completely not right because we have this equal then. This is just the thought process, If you're running your program and obviously you did something not completely right, think about it. Like, hey, I wanted to take 2 characters. Why? Well, it's because technically, if you're saying that you want that condition to be, there's 2 ways to write that, right? Either we take out the equals, or we could say is it needs to be less than or equal to 1, which means there's at least 1 character in there. Both of them are right. I prefer just being a little bit more implicit, saying that when you read this, you can say this has to be greater than 2, right? Like we could just see we got 2 here. Temp name has to be greater than it. So when we run this program again, hello, all this stuff is working now. Cool. Very cool. So moving on here. So now we're able to do a little bit of a while loop to make sure that we're getting a valid name from our user. We're verifying that the length of the characters are at least 2. And if it is, we're going to set that name, we're going to set that temp name to the name of that we want, and that's going to help us escape our loop. So anytime, especially when you're doing while loops, essentially think of it as like while I'm doing a thing, while I'm doing this thing, I will do it until there's a condition met. So now that is one way to write it, but imagine if we ran this program and like this user just was not giving us a name with at least 2 characters, right? We're just nothing. I mean, our program is technically running forever. And I don't think that's really good, right? Ideally, if we're not getting the input we want, we don't want to just spin up the program. The program will run forever until there's someone that comes in and sends, terminates that process, either through getting access to the terminal and setting a keyboard interrupt, or finding the process that's running and deleting that process, right? So what's another way we can do that? There's a couple ways to do it. The one that jumps out to me is I would like to set some arbitrary amount of time that we can kind of prompt a user before saying, all right, you didn't give us the input we wanted, run the program later or something like that. And the way we can do that is I would love to set like a max prompt amount. And let's set this to like 5. So essentially, what we want to do is we want to say if we prompted the user 5 times, and we did not get the input we wanted, let's stop the program, let's stop the loop, and let's exit gracefully. So the way that we can do that is we can make a loop counter here. We'll start this at 0. So every time we prompt, what we can do is we can add, and there's a couple ways to do this. There's shorthand for this. So we can do like loop counter plus, equal plus 1, or we can do equal loop counter plus 1. Both of these are technically right. The plus equals is shorthand, just says like add this value and set it, or equal plus, I'm sorry, is shorthand for like add this value, set it. But both these are right. I probably recommend, being a little more verbose if you're getting started. Nothing's wrong with that. You can go ahead, and this gives you an opportunity to refactor your code later. Refactoring is a really good exercise to get into, and that's as you write your programs and you're learning software engineering and you're learning new things. It's really cool to just go back and say, man, this code's not really great. I'm going to make some changes and additions. I've learned a lot since I wrote this program, a week ago, months ago, a year ago. And I feel like I can really get a learning experience out of changing my program I wrote in the past. So personally, I say, as you're getting started, be a little more verbose, helps you go through the refactoring process and gaining the discipline of learning how to refactor and wanting to refactor, which is a really good thing to do. So now that we have our loop counter, set it to 0, we know we only want to loop a maximum amount of 5 times. It means we only want to display to the user like, hey, give me your password, like give me, not your password, give me your name, a maximum of 5 times. So the way we can write that is obviously after we validate, hey, is the name that you gave me at least 2 characters, we can go ahead and we can say, if the loop counter is equal to the max prompt amount, what we can do is we can say, lines and something. Yeah, there's a new line. I'm so confused. I don't know what's yelling at me. It doesn't like something I did. Oh, it's really helpful? Putting an if statement there. So if the loop counter is equal to the max prompt amount, let's do a message. Let's say, max prompt. Let's say like prompt max reached, and then we'll exit. So when we run this program, if we ask 5 times, so let's count our prompts to make sure we're doing it good. 1, 2, 3. Nope. We'll only get 1, 2, 3, and then prompts reached. That's not 5. Anyone know why? Let's think about this. Let's go back, right? So we got our loop counter. We set it to 0. On the first iteration, what we do, we add 1. Let's think about this. So now our loop counter is really 1 the first time we prompt for this. So what is your name? All right, cool. So we prompt for that. We go to the next iteration, 2, 3. Essentially, I was expecting maybe to see, actually, let's go back. I know we're probably over 1. Let's double check that. 1, 2. Actually, no. 1, 2. Oh, we're actually good. Never mind. No, no loop counter misses, which is actually good. I was like, this actually should work. So it's always good to double validate. And in Windows, this terminal sometimes won't help you format this stuff as well as you want. If in the case, CLS or Clear will help you get rid of this stuff on Windows, and then you can just rerun your program, format the terminal a little bit more appropriately, what you're expecting. So no, we're good, right? And we'll just talk through the logic just to make sure. Our first loop counter is 1. If we put the loop counter at the end, I do want to show you this. I think this is important. So if we put the loop counter at the end, would it change? Meaning we evaluate like, hey, are we at the loop count and all that stuff. See, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's a little bit more than we expected. And if we think about this logically, right? The reason for that is technically when the first time we go through this loop iteration, the counter set to 0 here, right? So when we go back through it the second time, it's 1. When we go back to it the third time, it's 2. So etc. When we go back through it the 5th time, it's actually 4. So we're going to hit one more print statement at 6 before we hit that. So definitely something to think about when we talk about loops and indexes and things like that. It's actually a really common thing in programming where these off by 1 errors are like really, really, really common and plague a lot of functionality, especially when we talk about features. It's probably one of the more common things to find in programs, these off by 1.